this annual electors meeting open. I welcome all councillors present, the staff, but most importantly, our residents and ratepayers. And we're going to have a short acknowledgement of country video. Thank you.
Lalak Mali Baju Kharich Wajak Umur Nua Bujara Balak Kali Umur Muyang Buja Kipwort Walaka Havarat Weird Bali Suran Kura Kura Yay One.
Exciting time to be.
Thank you, and I'd also like to say Kaya Kaji Wajak Nunga Buja. Hello, I acknowledge we're on Wajak Nunga land, and it's a pleasure to be here tonight to welcome you to our 2023 annual meeting of electors. This is where we'll receive the city's 2021 to 22 annual report, the financial statements for the year ending the 30th of June 2022, and the auditor's report. This is also an opportunity for you to learn about the performance and achievements of our city, ask questions and move motions. When you come forward to do any of those, please state your name and the suburb from which you come. And I remind people that only registered electors in the City of Swan are able to move motions, ask questions or vote on items before us tonight. So the procedure of the meeting has been outlined in the schedule provided. Please note that only electors are eligible to move and vote on motions. As you'll hear shortly, we delivered many important services and projects to improve the quality of life for our residents and the community. In particular, I'd really like to highlight one major achievement for the City of Swan, and that is the launch of the city's first Reconciliation Action Plan. As Mayor of a local government with the highest proportion and population of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in the metropolitan area, it was one of my biggest priorities to ensure that we strengthen relationships with local First Nations people, build a culture of respect, implement work practices that promote equity and opportunity. As a city, we're well underway towards achieving our vision for reconciliation, nurturing a community that works together with all people to foster a culture of mutual respect, empowerment and inclusion. You can learn more about this type of work in our annual report available for you to read tonight. And last year I was pleased to see our community come together to celebrate our community's cultural diversity and rich history. We hosted events like NAIDOC Week, National Reconciliation Week and a Camberang Festival. We also welcome hundreds of new Australian citizens into our community who have chosen to call our city their home after travelling here from around the world. I feel very proud to be part of this vibrant, diverse and growing community. We are one city with diverse people, culture and places. It's my immense privilege to lead a team of people who work hard to improve the lives of others. And I'd like to thank all of you for attending tonight. I look forward to hearing your priorities, feedback and suggestions. I'd now like to invite you to watch a video summarising some of our key achievements in the City of Swan for 2021-22. Thank you, Danica.
And we are proud to present to you this short video which outlines some of our key achievements and outcomes for the financial year ending the 30th of June 2022. We are committed to providing you with value for your rates investment by delivering a high quality of services and projects, and our annual report outlines how we have delivered on our commitment to you. For your rates investment in 2021-22, the City of Swan delivered 67,125 weekly waste collections and 64,019 fortnightly recycling collections. diverted 2.7 million containers in landfill in support of the Container Deposit Scheme, welcomed 713,097 people through the doors of our Swan Active Leisure Centres, serviced 84,427 library borrowers, loaned more than 500,817 library books, processed 96,779 customer service calls, processed 1,298 planning applications, 3,745 building applications, and 6,761 animal registrations. Connected 1,680 volunteers to local community groups in need of help, gave away approximately 10,000 seedlings to residents as part of the Rural Properties Revegetation Program, assisted 961 aged people and people with a disability. Your rates also helped us to support some wonderful community-led initiatives. We awarded more than $318,000 to 194 community recipients via grants, sponsorships and donations. We additionally shared $57,600 among 21 community groups for initiatives celebrating local history, cultural experiences and their local places. We also delivered a broad program of city-led events, including monthly citizenship ceremonies and a special Australia Day citizenship ceremony on January 26. NAIDOC Week festivities to celebrate the culture of First Nations peoples. Kabarang Festival in celebration of the First Nations peoples and their art, culture and traditions. Avon Descent Festival, which attracted 7,000 people who enjoyed the free activities and the exciting water race. Entwined in the Valley, an iconic weekend of Swan Valley experiences and activities, and the Women's Big Bash League at Lilac Hill Park. With our population set to double in the next 25 years, catering for growth in a sustainable manner is a huge priority for the City of Swan. A step in the right direction was Council's adoption of the city's Sustainable Environment Strategy, which is public declaration to reach net zero corporate emissions by 2050. We are committed to reducing our own local impacts on the environment and to assist our communities to understand the changes they can make as well. For example, we are investing in protecting our natural environment by implementing a range of initiatives from extensive tree planting to hosting free thinking green workshops, equipping our residents with the knowledge to make more sustainable, environmentally conscious choices. We're also looking at our own organisational footprint and expanded our renewable energy portfolio by 34% with the installation of a 90 kilowatt system on Swan Active, Beachborough. In 2021-22, we spent more than $125 million on infrastructure, buildings, parks and more, delivering one of the largest capital works programs across the West Australian local government landscape. For your rates investment in our Capital Works program, we maintained 329 parks and reserves, 280 building assets, 877 kilometres of drainage pipes, 968 kilometres of footpaths, 3,375 road at a total length of 1,625 kilometres. We also delivered some fantastic facilities. Brockman Community Centre was completed in mid-2022 thanks to the funding from the WA Government, Lottery West and the Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Program. It is a modern, well-designed home for local non-for-profit Brockman Community House, who offer important community and family support services for our residents. The Brabham Oval and Pavilion officially opened in November 2021, boasting a new turfed playing field, sports floodlighting and a play space to service the surrounding growing community. The Ron Joes Pavilion, meanwhile, named after the late local footy legend, was officially opened in September 2021. The multi-million-dollar pavilion is the new home for local junior, senior and masters AFL, cricket and T-ball clubs. Very importantly, in 2021-22, we also set the city's vision for reconciliation. The City of Swan has the highest population of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in the Perth metropolitan area, with 5,302 people representing 3.3% of our total population. This is proportionally higher than Greater Perth, which sits at 2%. Endorsed by Reconciliation Australia in March 2022, our very first Reconciliation Action Plan outlines 17 actions to strengthen relationships with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and build a community that works together to foster a culture of empowerment and inclusion. As a city, we will now move forward together to help build a just, equitable and reconciled Australia. The Wooroloo Bushfire Recovery Plan was endorsed by Council on July 28, 2021 and is guiding the city's ongoing recovery efforts. Communication, connection and engagement with the affected community are a strong focus in this plan through ongoing community recovery events, accessibility to the recovery team, support services, volunteer groups and agencies, and will be ongoing for the foreseeable future. On October 13, 2021, Council endorsed the City of Swan submission to the Wooroloo Independent Review Team, being led by the Australasian Fire and Emergency Services Council. The City of Swan welcomed the release of the independent review in March 2022, marking another milestone in recovery for the local community, particularly volunteer firefighters. The city will implement actions locally to continue to improve community preparedness and response to bushfires. In 2023, we have a lot to look forward to in the City of Swan. We're soon set to finish the Ellenbrook Youth Centre, a new space for our young residents between the ages of 12 and 25 to socialise and connect with one another. This new youth centre, due to open in mid-2023, offers a range of activities, services and support, including counselling, financial advice, employment and training. We're also expecting to reopen Stock Road, which will offer a new connection for commuters between Great Northern and Tonkin highways. The new road is going to drastically reduce travel times for residents in Bullsbrook and allow heavy haulage and oversized loaded trucks to bypass around the Bullsbrook town site. Great news for our Bullsbrook residents and commuters. Work on stage 2 of the Dayton District Open Space will soon commence. This $20 million project will provide a new recreation space for our community, including sporting pavilions, a youth precinct, synthetic hockey fields, AFL ovals, netball courts and cricket nets. In the heart of Midland, the next chapter of the new junction development is set to commence and will include the development of Residential Park, a green public space for future residents and the surrounding community to enjoy. Construction on the Swan Active Midland refurbishment will continue this year with fantastic upgrades to the gym, group fitness room, indoor pools, sports courts and changing rooms. The Ellenbrook Aquatic Centre project is also progressing, thanks to a $42 million commitment from the WA and federal governments. The city will present a report to council early in 2023 containing a review of the city's aquatic facilities strategy, which will include a proposed new location for the aquatic centre. Finally, in very exciting news, our free trees and plants giveaway will also return this year, with 45,000 plants available to residents, including those living in urban areas for the first time. This will be the biggest giveaway in the city's history and is a testament to our commitment to becoming a greener city. There are many exciting projects on the horizon for the City of Swan, all aimed at achieving our vision to be a sustainable, thriving city of diverse people and places, enjoying a great quality of life. From all of us, thank you for choosing to be a part of the City of Swan community.
Thank you. I'd now like to hand over to our new CEO. I was just wondering, the lighting person, could you see to dim those lights down? It's very even further. Thank you. It's very hard looking into a set of spotlights. I'd like now to introduce our new CEO who's been with us just for 2 months, Mr. Stephen Kane. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening all. I'm very glad that this is not an episode of Australia Idol, because I'm not standing up to audition and sing at that microphone for anyone here. But I too would like to acknowledge formally the Whadjuk people of Noongar Nation and pay my respects personally to the elders, both past, present and emerging. It's wonderful to see so many of you come out to an electors meeting. I've been to 3 local governments, and can I tell you, this is the largest group I've seen come to an electors meeting. So it's great to see your commitment back to your local community. I started the role some 2 months ago, and at that time I've had the opportunity to get around to see much of the city of Swan. It's impressive. You live in a great community, and I think you have much to be proud of. The video we put forward to you tonight was to try and give you a taste of just some of the things that a local government does. Some of them are very mundane. You mightn't be interested in the number of dogs we have to register or building applications to process. But each application is about welcoming a new family to live in the city of Swan. And that's how we should see it. It's about the customer, the person, rather than just a piece of paper that comes across our desk. I've been very impressed with the staff the city have. I find when I go around and ask staff, what makes it worthwhile coming to work? And they talk about the camaraderie in the workplace and the great job they've got to do. And it's important for you to understand if we didn't have staff, well, we couldn't do all of the jobs that were listed on the screen during that presentation. There are many things exciting in the year ahead. So we added to the video just a taste of what some of those would be. Now, for those of you who came in tonight, you may have noticed the Ellenbrook Youth Centre, which is just behind the car park, behind where the auditorium is. That'll be finished in a couple of months' time and again welcome the youth of this community to have a fantastic place in which to socialise. And it's part of a network of facilities and activities we provide for people of all different ages. Now, during the course of the year, I'm looking forward to helping drive the renewed focus on the environment. You would have seen there initiatives around sustainability, and tonight you read our annual report. There is a very big focus on the natural environment and the things that are important to helping to preserve it. Future iterations of the residents here will ask us, what did you do to address the issues of today? Council's commitment and sustainability strategy is on display for you as we set a bold vision of having a 2050 zero emissions future. Now, I recognise very much that where you live in the city of Swan matters most to you. And that's why I've directed the staff that one of the key focuses this year is to improve the knowledge of local planning. If I asked you where you live, you would tell me the beauty of your own location. But we should be able to talk to you and tell you the things that we are intending to do as an organisation to continue to improve the suburb in which you live. So for 2023, that's a key priority. As well as one of the other key priorities is to continue to step into the digital world. The use of online services to help you transact with the city, engage with the city, and communicate to the city. We have a project underway now for a new website. That's one of the primary tools which our residents communicate to us. And in coming months, you'll see a vibrant new front end, and behind that, more capacity for you to transact online. I'm also pleased to announce, as the Mayor and others released last week, a new engagement platform called Swan Engage. Again, it's about assisting us to continue to seek community input, to gather the data that's part of assisting us with our decision making, and to report material back to Council. It will allow the city to hear your views and seek your contributions, which is one of the reasons you're here this evening. Now, above all, I want to assure you the city is interested in being an agile, receptive, and responsive organisation. If in the course of transacting with us, you don't find that's the case, please reach out to me directly and I will return a correspondence back to you in one way or another. A phone call, a text, or an email. Or perhaps, more importantly, you could join me for a cup of coffee, or if you're really lucky, a glass of wine in the beautiful Swan Valley. On behalf of the city, I'd like to thank you all for attending tonight. I'd particularly like to thank the school for making this venue available to us. And Mr. Mayor, I think it's now time to look at the annual report and any questions that might come from it.
Thank you, Stephen. So the next part of the meeting is dedicated, and I now invite any questions from the floor on the annual report or anything that raises out of the annual report. Are there any questions? Thank you. After that, we'll move on to general business. I saw a hand go up here. Perhaps if you come down to the microphone, state your name and suburb, and ask your question on the annual report, and I'll direct it to the correct officer.
My name is Madar Turner. I live in Swanview. And can I ask more than one question?
You can ask a maximum of 5, and then I'll let other people ask questions. If time permits, you can ask more. Thank you.
First one and most important for me, the first page. Describe the revenues and the expenditure. The revenue here is 204.6 million.
Sorry, can you just repeat what page you're reading from?
16.
16, thank you.
And nowhere else in this first section do you give any other revenue, whereas the auditor report also states a very nice number of $64 million of non-operational revenue. So why is the choice not to display it?
Mr. CEO, Ms. Lowe?
We're both happy to take this question. So bearing in mind the city receives fixed income from rates and other sources, we also receive items which we attribute to revenue. So when developers contribute assets to us, the roads, drains and other things to us, we have to take them onto our books. This becomes part of your non-operational revenue. Now you would have noticed the rapid expansion of the city over the last few years. You would have seen the new subdivisions that are created. So these gifted assets come back to us and they form part of our asset base. Tim, did you have any other question or observation you wanted to make?
Through the Mayor, the city's practice in the financial overview at the front of the annual report is usually to present an operating view, and the further detail is contained in part 2 of the annual report, which details our audited financial statements.
Okay, so the second half is, even if you just look at those two, the revenue and expenditure, there is a $30 million difference. If you actually look at the auditor review, we're talking about $95 million that is in plus. So that is, the city has gained that money. What are you going to do with it? Last year, there was the same number.
Going through the chair, if I may. So the issue of generating an operating surplus, this is the piece where your operating revenue exceeds your expenditure, is essential for a sustainable local government. That surplus becomes the capital by which we use to build the facilities. So things like the youth centre next door, the future Ellenbrook pool, Swan Active Midland, in terms of any enhancements to it. If you do not generate an operating surplus, you have no capacity to build infrastructure except to borrow. Now, no government in the world can borrow for 100% of all of its infrastructure asset needs. It's simply not possible. So you see the same thing with the state government or federal government. They will have a certain amount of income coming back to them, a certain amount of borrowings, and you'll also notice the borrowings in our report here. But it is essential. It's essential that you have to generate an operating surplus.
You have a big one. So there is also $170 million of reserve that the city has.
Yes, and you would notice if you break each of the reserves down, the reserves, the vast majority of them have a specific purpose. So much of the reserve money goes into reserves which are quarantined for that purpose. So the infrastructure the city has to build, for instance, for its future development contributions is some 400 million of DCP-related projects. We have specific reserves where we receive development contributions to developers and they go into the reserves. We can't spend that money on anything else other than those development projects. We put other reserves aside to pay for instance, employee entitlements when they leave the organisation, to pay for sustainability initiatives, to pay for asset replacement. So each reserve has a specific purpose. Now, the quantum of reserves is not completely sufficient to meet all of our liabilities, but it does give you a very good base on which you can to fund your operations, again, without having to come back and fund everything else by debt.
Okay, I can just tell you I'm not an accountant, But as a person reading it, it does, first of all, feels that there is an attempt to hide some of the revenue, and there is a lot of fact in the system. I'll let other people ask.
I'll just come back to your last piece. Certainly there's no intent to hide anything, and that's why we published all of the financial accounts, including the transactions that go through the account each year. I will admit that when you read a balance sheet for a local government, it's different to a balance sheet of, say, Qantas or Telstra, because unlike those organisations who are simply there to make a profit, publish their earnings before, after interest, depreciation, amortisation, etc., and return the investment back to the shareholder, things like the surplus we generate now goes back into our reserve to build back into new facilities. We have a zero-sum game. So we can only raise enough money each year in order to build the things we need now, to pay for the services we need now, or to plan for the infrastructure we need in the future.
Okay, I'll come back.
Thank you, and I encourage you, have any further questions, please email them straight to the city and we'll respond to them. I'll ask again, are there any other questions on the annual report from the floor before we move on? No other questions? Oh, you've got another one. Thank you. I did say you'd ask 5, you only asked 3. No comment.
Sorry. A bit more specific, so only 2 more. On page 69, it says the objective is to minimize waste to landfill. The target is 60% diversion by 2025. The reporting year, so last year, we were on 27.5%. How are we going to get in 2 years to more than double that?
And I'm very happy to announce that we'll actually achieve the target by middle of this year.
How?
There you go. So if you look at the primary sources of your waste when you go to your household each day, you have 2 or 3 bins. You'll have a general garbage bin, which is a green bin. You'll have a yellow top bin, which pushes recyclables through. And then you've got a series of other wastes, usually your green waste. Now we take all of your garden waste that we completely recycle that. It's got a very low level of contamination and usually no more than 1%. Your recyclables will go through as you were seeing tonight from the facility, a materials recovery plant. And we're able to recover approximately 80% of that. The reason we can't recover the full amount is that typically there's what we call wish recycling. You've turned that packaging over on the back and you've looked, it's got a little triangle on the back and it says it can be recycled. Not everything with a triangle on the back can be recycled. So typically about 20% of that goes into the landfill. But for your municipal solid waste, where we extract out those things we can, the rest of it goes to landfill. The council made a very solid decision a number of years ago to take all your residual solid waste and put it into a waste-to-energy plant. This plant under construction in Rockingham will be complete for its commissioning, we hope in about April of this year. It'll take commissioning waste. As of that time, once we divert your municipal solid waste into that plant, nothing will go to landfill except the residual coming out. And the residual out of a waste-to-energy plant is somewhere around 3% of the product that comes back in the way of ash, as a fly ash, as a small fly ash. So once we've done that, the next focus for the city will be to say, well, could we do something else with your municipal solid waste? And that's why we're looking at the issue of introducing a FOGO service. FOGO would then take your garden organic and your food organic waste and look to extract that out. It's a much higher cost, but none of that will be going to landfill anyway. So we'll have achieved our target by the middle of this year.
That's good news. The other one is similar, that hopefully just by having you with us, that will be sorted. That the vision on page 6, committed to economic growth and diversity balanced with natural environment and heritage. And later on down the page, the city is committed to caring for and protecting the environment. In the past year, the council has not demonstrated this vision on quite a few occasions, like the significant tree register, the Helena Brook Bridge that luckily state government might put up there, and the East Link priority. to name a few. So in the coming year, I do hope that you will follow the vision a bit better. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll ask again, are there any other questions on the annual report? If not, we'll move on to the next part of the general business, and that will be matters presented at the last annual electors meeting have been provided with an update, which is available on the city's website. There is also a number of handouts this evening. They've all been taken. And 4.1, questions from electors. Questions and answers recorded in the minutes of the meeting may be summarised in accordance with Local Government Administration Regulations of 1996. 5 questions are permitted per person in the first instance, giving an opportunity for others to ask questions, and if there's time at the end of the meeting, I'll allow people to ask more than 5 questions. Any questions taken on notice at this meeting will be responded to in the minutes, and the following questions were received in writing prior to the meeting and have been provided with a response. The first questions were from Gary Wetner. Is Gary here tonight? Have you had an opportunity to read those responses, Gary? Does anything arise out of them?
I would like to comment next, please.
Okay, you can come down. Thank you. You can state the question that you have a query in regard to, and we'll try and clarify it if we can tonight. If not, we'll get back to you in writing.
Okay, thank you. So the first question is relating obviously to a T-ball and a softball club that we've established in the Ellenbrook Aveley area. So is it true that there are no plans to establish a diamond sport, being T-ball, baseball and softball, a facility in the Ellenbrook Aveley Bradham region? So there is a response there. Do you need me to read the response, or people are just going to read it?
Well, I just want you to clarify anything.
Okay.
So we have answered the question.
Okay, so part of the question, the answer is that there is a facility at North Swan Park. Now that raises concerns because that is home to the Swan District's T-ball and baseball club. And we've had a lot of discussion with them because with a new club of 250 children playing T-ball, this is just in our second season, they're obviously keen to draw our kids into the baseball division, which is a more senior sort of division. But there are concerns about their location. We say here North Swan Park, which is just the sort of northeastern section of Midland, but there are concerns that they are having to relocate and possibly as far as Kalamunda, so that the city of Swan loses that sporting club to another city, being Kalamunda, because of the Roe Highway potential extension, or the East Link project, I'm not sure what it's called. So their concern is that they can't guarantee future facilities at North Swan Park. How do we comment?
Well, I can't comment on what may happen in the future, but I believe the Charles Hodder Oval is a specific baseball oval with facilities there, and I think it'd be a very long-term project before anything. I don't know whether Mr. Coden can comment further on the viability. No?
The comments from the Swan District's baseball club, who actually run a state league team as well, is that they might need to start looking to relocate by the end of 2023.
Well, I'm unaware of any of those concerns raised by them.
Well, that just raises a concern for us about the potential pathway for our youngsters. Okay. Can I continue on with other questions?
Well, if there's something arising or you have further questions, thank you.
So the second question regarding the same issue about a venue for our T-ball and softball club is that what we find is, because we've been obviously looking for a home ground, we currently play at the Swan Valley Anglican Community School. They've given us their oval, which we use on a Sunday morning, because there's no oval facilities available from the City of Swan. Yes, we've been in discussion with the city, but it's a very, unfortunately, I know the process is what it is, but it seems to be quite a long-winded process. We've been in discussion now for about 2 years since we started the club, and based on the response is that the underutilisation of the current ovals in specifically the Ellenbrook area, and I would identify Coolabon Oval as a typical example. I believe the only thing that operates there at the moment is Little Athletics, and I'm not quite sure specifically of the number of members they have. I believe it's less than 150.
Well, Mr. Webner,
Yep.
I don't want to interrupt or be rude, but you're just making general statements. If you have a concern in relation to the question, because we've got lots of other people here tonight to ask
Right, yeah.
questions. If not, I'm happy to either meet with you or have council staff meet with you to try and get some of these.
Well, just quickly, the Coolabon Oval, we've been told, is not available specifically. We've got an email that says, no, it's not available because Little Athletics use it. Now, we're trying to see, well, why can't we share? All it is a bit of line marking, like indoor stadiums. Let's cross over. You know, it'd be a perfect oval because at the school, we don't have any facilities. We don't have canteen. We don't have a pavilion. Whereas at Coolabon, all that is already in place. Be a perfect location. And then I would just go on to question 3, where the city has responded once again saying that depending on the type of sport, that the oval may not be available. You've identified Coolabon Oval and EDOS North. We've been told they're both unavailable. They're not compatible, and they're now looking at possibly putting us at Woodlake Oval. The only thing with Woodlake Oval, again from the city's response, there's a Department of Education issue from the primary school. There's the Archbishop of Perth that needs to get involved because of the Catholic school, and the City of Swan obviously involved there. So that's 3 entities that we've got to try and get this through just to get use of that oval. So that's becoming quite hard work for us. So I guess the bottom line is, it's what are the responses to try to get us this oval and these facilities?
Thank you. We'll try our best, and as I said, I'm always welcome to have an in-person meeting with the appropriate staff. And I suppose this is a fact of life. You're a new club in your 2nd season in an area that's got existing clubs and sports that have been there for many years, and we'll try and accommodate as best we can. And if it means you have to travel for a short time until we can find a solution, but we're happy to work with you and your club to find a solution.
So just very quickly, as we've said, Coolabon Oval, there's no usage there on a Sunday, and that's when in 5 hours, we have all 250 children finished and done.
That's why I've asked you to come and have a meeting so we can try and resolve some of these issues.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The next person who had questions was Shannon Ashgill. Shannon here. Is anything arise out of that, Shannon?
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Next questions, there are 4 been answered from Lynn Deering. Is Lynn here? Hello, Lynn. Anything arising out of those first 4 questions, and the 5th one's been taken on notice? Thank you. Next questions were from Lois Crowley of Woodbridge. Is Lois here? Okay. And now I have Dale Astill from Violish. Dale here?
Yeah, no, all good, thank you.
Thank you. And Lynn, your question was repeated, but we've got that taken on notice and we'll give you a written response. Next question is from Mr. Mark Church from the Vines and Resident Ratepayers Association. Mark? Thank you. You come to the podium. I believe this one came in late, that's why there's been no response.
Mark Church at the Vines. The Vines Ratepayer and Residents Association wish to place on record their following concern. In considering our response to the DA 6-23, we note that the application focuses on the development only of a driving range and associated amenities. However, the majority of our members are aware of a proposal by the property owners, the Vines WA Proprietary Limited, of a vision statement proposing the upgrade of the Vines facilities advanced in June 2021 and a confirming newsletter headed Moving Forward, dated 21 October 2022, that outlined a much bigger DA than encompassed in the recently lodged development application. That document reinforces the plans of the owner-developer for a much greater development being undertaken. Our concern, therefore, is based on the obvious intent of the owner-developer to circumvent the planning process normally pursued for such a wider development by applying incremental steps in their planned greater development. The development of a driving range and associated amenities being the first of such planned incremental steps. We are aware that this current development application will be undertaken under a JDAP process, and that limitations in that process focuses attention on the DA, thus standing. So the question is, will the City of Swan urgently represent this shortcoming to the JDAP administration and the Planning Minister in an effort to ensure this clear injustice and injury to the Vines residents is prevented? We are therefore opposed to the development application regarding the driving range and associated amenities, and will provide further advice as a consequence following the public meeting scheduled for tomorrow night, whereby you have agreed to provide further clarification on the DA process.
Thank you, Mark. I'll have to defer to our Executive Manager of Planning. As far as I'm aware, the city's received no such application as yet, so Mr. Vanderlyn, thank you.
For you, Mr. Mayor, just for clarity, an application, a development application for driving range have been received. It's a JDAP application on which the council will provide comments to the JDAP, and we will make the final decision on the application. Now, if I understand Mr. Church's presentation correctly, they identify their concern at this point in time. Now, for the council to react to that concern itself and writing to the minister, council will have to be advised by staff on the merits of the application. So under the planning legislation, the merits of the application will be assessed and a recommendation made to council in due course. We foresee that will be at the April council meeting. Council will then make a recommendation to the JDAP, and that recommendation and council's decision to make that recommendation could include the matters raised by Mr. Church in his statement of concern. But it would be proper for the council to refrain from making any resolution on that request at this point in time prior to them having had the information on the application. So at the moment, that application is being advertised, and residents are free to make submissions on the application. We foresee that these same concerns will form part of those submissions. That will then be objectively assessed and presented to council for council then to make a decision on how to deal with the matter.
Thank you, Mr. Vanderlyn. That was all the written submissions received. I'll ask, are there any further questions from the floor before we go on to motions from the electors? We've got a question, sir. You can come down, state your name, the suburb you live in.
Hi, Council. Tristan Bergman from the Vines. I'll probably be a bit more specific with the question. So, obviously, you heard from Mr. Wetner earlier with the growth of the Eastern's T-ball and softball club. We are trying to grow our facilities and enable us to grow further. We are struggling with facilities such as basic bathrooms and things like that, which we don't currently have enough of in our current facilities. So we heard, I think it was, sorry I didn't write the question down, but one of the questions that we've asked from the club is the creation of the Whiteman Regional Open Space was an answer as a measure coming forward. In the interim, we believe Coolum Oval is the best place to support the club, considering there is only the one club there. In response to question 3, it stated the availability and or compatibility with other clubs being the issue. If I could just ask the council to look into this response, as our research and understanding is that this is not the case.
Thank you, and if you work with Mr. Wetner, and we can have that meeting to discuss those options. Thank you. Any other questions from members? Yes, if you can please come down, state your name and your suburb of residence, and we'll take your question. I'll just have to stop you there, Antonio. I've got one lady here, so if you just stay there or grab that seat on the corner and you can come up next. Thank you. You can just state your name and suburb.
Lee Borden from Woodbridge. I have 2 questions. I also have a motion, but I put it in late, so these are questions following from that. And it's regarding the MORM finances. And my concerns are that whilst the CEO, Mr. CEO, stated there's no attempt to hide finances, however, the MORM financial reporting process sits outside the open financial process that is engaged in presenting and producing your annual report, which contains your financial reports. And the MORM financial process is set behind closed doors, and that concerns me, and I would like to have some explanation as to that. I am aware that there was a motion passed at council some time ago which voted to have it set behind closed doors, but as a ratepayer I'm not quite sure why that is. I can now ask the second question as well, unless you want to answer that first.
Well, perhaps
We'll take it on notice.
Well, I'll just let the CEO respond to your first question first.
Thank you.
Thank you and good evening and welcome. And thank you for the question. I've only been here 10 weeks, so trying to get across each of the matters in the city, it's taking some time. The normal process for local government, where it initiates a land transaction that has confidential sale values in it, those values are dealt with behind closed doors at the particular time. However, there's a requirement afterwards to publish the value of the transaction to go through. So I haven't seen anything that shows right now there's any concern about transparency. I have looked through and seen on the city's recently adopted audit program, finances for that project are due for as part of a formal audit by the city's auditors, which is due to take place, I think, in the 3rd quarter of this year or early next year, 3rd quarter of this year. So the transactions that relate to that will be dealt with by audit.
Thank you. My second question relates to my motion, which I'm concerned to know if any or all of the alleged $70 million as part of that MORM project has been allocated and or used for any other projects, and if so, which?
Some of this I might take on notice, but if I could just go to the fundamentals here. The city, as it does each of these transactions going through, uses its reserves to move funds in and out. There have been a number of conjecturous matters raised regarding particular projects for this. Only the projects that are approved by council are the ones that sit in the finances here. So future infrastructure projects that might relate to the originally part of the multi-deck car park, no decision by council is made on that. Future projects to do with a potential administration centre, no decisions have been made on that. The only components that have been resolved by council have been those where there have been land that has been bought, or now 2 parcels that are proposed, including one coming to the council meeting this month on land to be sold. You know, I did a quick back of the envelope calculation between the two myself, and there's certainly a net positive value on just those transactions alone of what's been there today. So I think when the auditors come back and look at this and just do the transaction summary, that might be a time which council then resolves to make the audited financial data available to the public. And I'll look at that in terms of recommendation back to the council at that particular time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your questions, and I invite Antonio to the microphone to ask your question. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name's Antonio Pietro Battistessa and I'm a Swan Valley artist. I've been practicing for 47 years in the Valley. Our family is getting close to 100 years. But what I'm here to present is the question why. I'm here to present the question on Bogan Gugamat. You might ask, who is this? Who is Bogan Gugamat? He is a little owl, the smallest of the little owls in our species of owls. But we have one of the most incredible sculptures in the world. In actual fact, it's in the top 10. Now, for the Widgenup people, where the owl is, this is their cathedral. Their cathedral is under constant mining. So I'll go back to my notes. Why is my question the most amazing, spell-casting, significant rock sculpture under constant attack? Mr. Albert Curran, who has now passed, stated on many occasions, this site is part of our spiritual past. This is the legacy we are leaving our future generations of Indigenous and the non-Indigenous people, because we are all custodians. Every one of us is a custodian. The opportunity for our people's ecotourism, the Noongar people, managing the trails and the sacred sites. So what do we choose? Road base or the oldest culture sites in the world? 1 million Dreamtime stories. Maybe the sign should read, Bogan Gugamat, 35 million years of stories and dreaming. It's like a site that's been locked away. It's barbed wire. No one has access to it. It's the best kept secret. If you drive along Campersic Road, because he's up on the escarpment at the Hanson Quarry, and you ask the locals, do you know about this? The answer is, like my cousin, who's 84, says, and was born on the valley, says, I've never heard of it. I'm not here in any other respect, but other to say, this needs attention, because we have many of our locals who have spent most of their life fighting this. They are exhausted, they are tired, and they are despondent. And my message is very, very clear. This needs addressing. But unfortunately, this site has been sold. It is now owned by a German company. Yes, it is now owned by a German company.
Sorry, Antonio, I don't want to interrupt, but if you could ask a question or if you can put it in writing, we'll get back to you.
Well, yes, I will do that, but this is very serious. It is not something to blow over, because this is going to fall down. You know, this is going to fall down. This is 40 years. Anyway, it needs addressing. I don't know how or what, but it needs addressing. Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
No, thank you.